It's been adopted as it is. Thank you very much, honorable members, my co-chair, and our able clerk, our stakeholders here with present. The National Assembly was mandated by the Standing Order 68 of the Assembly Business Committee, ABC, to refer the bill to the relevant committee, which we are here today to meet our stakeholders, to have an engagement with our stakeholders and to hear from the witnesses about the sale bill. Thank you. We are now going to start the introduction of members.
Go ahead.
I am Honorable Pat Kejawa, nominated co-chair of the committee.
This is like Sierra Leone, Liberia, and across the continent of Africa. The reason why we are here today and making a presentation in front of the National Assembly is because of the bill that has been proposed to repeal the law against FGM, which was passed. So again, my name is Jaha Dukure, and I am the founder of Safe Hands for Girls. And the reason why we're here today is because of the bill that is presented to repeal the ban against FGM, which was passed here in the Gambia nearly 9 years ago. And as someone who has gone through type 3 FGM, I am not a medical doctor. So today I am not here to tell you what the health effects of FGM are. Because doctors have already come and they have presented, they have shown pictures, and they have shown videos of cases that they have seen here in the Gambia. You know, as someone who has the lived experiences of going through this practice, over the last 10 years since I started speaking out against my own experience of going through FGM, I've listened to people dehumanize me. I've listened to people say that we are lying. I've listened to people say that, you know, they're doing this because the white people are giving them money to come tell us that our culture is bad. And the fact that they believe that we are bought by the West. I want to clearly start by saying media is here, local media and international media in this room. As Jaha Dukure and as someone that was born in this country, I can never be bought. That's one. Secondly, I do not do this work because of the West. I care about this country and our women and our people more than any Western government. And as Safe Hands for Girls, since this campaign has started to repeal this law against FGM, there's not a single Western government that can tell you that they have funded any of what we are doing since we started this conversation. And they're here in the Gambia, you have their embassies. And if I'm lying, any of them can clearly come out and say that what she has said in front of the National Assembly, it's not true. As a 15-year-old, I went through FGM when I was 1 week old, and I got married at the age of 15. And I remember the night that I got married, that was the first time that I discovered what the practice of FGM is. And it's actually not dignifying to sit in front of anyone and talk about something as private and as intimate as going through what this practice is. You know, we hear a lot of conversations about Gambia not practicing female genital mutilation, but the Gambia practicing female circumcision, which is not the case. What I went through was the sealing of the vagina. And I remember as a 15-year-old when I got married and my husband was trying to have sex with me that first night, he pushed down on me until he wounded himself. That's when I discovered what this practice of FGM is. And after that night, I had to be taken to a hospital to remove that seal. And I remember clearly when they told me that I have to come back home and have sex with my husband the same night in order for the seal to not close back up. It's not something that I like talking about. It's not something that is fun for me to talk about. If I had an option or if I had a wish, I would never sit in front of anyone and share something as intimate as what I'm sharing right now. But the reason why I do is because the issue of FGM has always been one where people don't understand it. And the people that speak for us, they don't look like me. Neither do they sound the way that I sound. They don't come from the communities that I come from. And I felt that it was important that we put a human face to this issue and that we put a human voice to the issue of FGM. So I decided to put myself out there and I started speaking out on this issue. But Lisa will tell you, because she has been with me for more than 10 years since I started. I remember when I first started talking about FGM, every time I went in public, I would come back to my room and crawl up in bed for days because I had so much anxiety about the fact that I was out there talking about this. I'm not a religious leader. Yes, I'm a daughter of an imam. And I wouldn't sit here and argue with what the religious basis of this is, but that's not the angle that we are coming from. The angle that we have always come from as an organization is the fact that not only do we want to end practices like female genital mutilation and child marriage in the Gambia, but we also believe that it is important for us to uplift our women out of poverty. We believe that it is important that our girls have the same opportunity as our boys do in the Gambia by delaying marriage for girls and ensuring that we're investing directly in women in our communities. And this is not just something that we're saying. Everyone that knows us knows that over the last 10 years, we have invested in communities in this country. We have helped Gambian women start community gardening initiatives. When COVID hit in 2020, we were the organization that went out even before the government of the Gambia and not only distributed rice, but we also distributed cash to women across this country. And that was right after I won my first contract with L'Oreal, which is the biggest cosmetic brand in the world, to be the face of their company. And a lot of times, people don't even validate what we do that is not in relation to ending the issue of female genital mutilation. And they always assume that, everything. I don't even think in the Gambia, people want to know who Jaha is. What does Jaha do outside of speaking out against FGM? Ending FGM is not a career for me. If anything, I came back from the US last night to do this presentation. And for the last 6 months, I've been in this country. I haven't been working. I've been here with all of you to talk about this issue. Not because if I had an option, I'll be back home doing my work every single day. But the reason why I'm here is I was one of the people who pushed for this law to be passed in 2015. When Jammeh was here, a lot of you may not have the context of how Jammeh banned FGM. We were here doing a media training at the time with The Guardian, and I found out that Jammeh was on tour. And when I found out Jammeh was on tour, I left and went after him. And I followed them on tour across the Gambia. And when I reached Basse, the NIA stopped me. When they stopped me, because I was with a cameraman that is white. And Jammeh wanted to know why we have been following them. And after my exchange with the NIA, Jammeh allowed to see me, and we sat down and he asked me, why do I do the work that I'm doing? And what I told Jammeh at the time was, it's because of what I went through and knowing that he has a daughter and everything that women continue to go through. You've heard survivors here this week. And we know the realities of what women are going through in our country. And I remember Jammeh holding my hand and telling me that he would get back to me. 2 days after that meeting with Jammeh, that's when I was called and told that they wanted me to come back to Kanilai. And that was when Jammeh made that announcement. And when I asked him, why did he do it? Even his children did not go through FGM. And before I started doing this work on this issue, I had a lot of issue with my own family. I had a lot of issues with my own community because a lot of people felt that I was fighting my religion. A lot of people felt that I was fighting my culture. And for me, it created a lot of internal conflict in my own heart, which is why I wanted to know is what I'm doing against Islam. I spoke to religious leaders in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, across the Muslim world. And I realized that there's no concrete evidence that female genital mutilation is obligatory in our religion. So because of that, and knowing that the concept of harm in Islam and doing no harm to women and girls, whenever we realize that the harm outweighs the benefit, it's important for us to know that this is something that we should leave behind. One thing I want you guys to all remember is that when we look at Islam as a religion, it doesn't prohibit slavery, but the Constitution of the Gambia prohibits slavery because we know that it's harmful. So if our religion doesn't specifically tell us that FGM is haram, as a human race, we have seen the impacts that this has on women. I have a sister that died from going through FGM, and that is not a lie. I was born here in the Gambia. The media is here. My family members are watching this. When she was subjected to FGM, when she was 1 week old, she bled. And this is the reality for many people. And we're not saying that everyone that goes through FGM dies, because I went through FGM and I'm sitting here. Lisa has gone through FGM and she's sitting here. There's a lot of women who have been subjected to FGM that are still alive, and they have their organs that are functioning, but there's a lot of them also that are having issues based on what they have been through. And for us to take everyone and box them and say that all of these people are doing this work because of the white man, then you're telling us that we don't have enough in us to care enough about our community and our women to do this work without anyone telling us to do it. This is not about money. It was never about money for me. It was about the reality of people within this continent. Globally, there are 200 million women who have been subjected to the practice of female genital mutilation. And there are more than 600 million girls who have been forced to get married before they turn the age of 18. When I wake up every single morning, those are the young girls that I speak out for. And that is why I do this work. And no one can ever pay me either to work on this issue or to stop on this issue. And I think it's very, very important. And I'm not saying that everyone that works on FGM, they don't have ulterior motives. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I can say, and I can speak for me and the people that I have worked with, whether it's Safe Matija, who registered Safe Hands here in the Gambia, or every single person that has stood with us over the years. I always tell donor communities that one of the reasons why it's hard for me to go and ask people for money when it comes to ending FGM is because of the personal experience that I have with it. But not only that, I don't want to ever feel like I'm begging anyone to do anything for me. Because the reality is, advocacy doesn't have a lot of money in it. When you're in the West, they rather give money to organizations that are based in New York or that are based in London. But because of the color of our skin, people are always looking down on us. And then when we come home as well, we have to hear from our people that the work that we do is not sincere. And we're not doing it because of our people. So I'm here to beg you. I'm here to appeal to you. Because I know that today is the last day of sessions for this committee. And we are all Gambians. And we care about the women in our country. We care about the girls that are being used as collateral damage in this issue. I continue to hear a lot of rumors that a lot of people are using this to collect money from donor institutions. That's not us. At Safe Hands for Girls, if there's any international donor that can come out and tell you that right now they've given us X amount of money, then you can use that to judge us. But what we need from you is for you to understand that all the testimonies that you have heard, all of these people cannot be paid to come here and tell you that this is the reality of what they continue to see. I know that there's a lot of people that are saying that the doctors, it's all fabricated, it's all fake news. We continue to hear all of that. But I am appealing to your humanity. I am appealing to each and every one of you to open your hearts and open your ears and know that everything that has been presented to you, look at it and ensure that even you can do your own site visits, whether it's visiting hospitals in the Gambia and ensuring that you see what you need to see. But let's not politicize this issue and let's not allow ourselves to be so polarized. The law that we have against FGM is a Gambian law. It's not a Jamil law. It's not a Jahadukure law. It's a law that is here to protect every single woman and girl in this country. And we have a moral responsibility to ensure that we are protecting our girls. Right now, the argument that we are faced with, whether it's female circumcision or it's female genital mutilation, right? Who determines what is being cut and how much is being cut? And how do we know that? It's a loophole that we do not want to get into. And like I said, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a religious leader. I am not here to tell you that what the religious leaders are saying is inaccurate or it's accurate, because that is not my place. But what I am saying is, it's important for us to ensure that we protect our women and girls. But it's also important for us to educate our people. The work that we do has been done in a very respectful manner. We have never gone into a community and insulted anyone. If anything, I have always told my team, when we go into a community, let's make sure we listen to our people and understand why they believe in the things that they believe in. And it's also important that our programs do not focus entirely on just FGM, but that our programs look at the whole woman and what their needs are, and that we invest in them. Because when I die, I want to make sure that when they go into communities that I work in, you can point a finger and say, this is what Jaha did. This is how she impacted lives. This is what she changed in those communities. So if I'm going to accept money for anything, that would be it. But not to use my voice to speak out against FGM, because advocacy should not cost a thing. Using my voice to say what I believe in, that doesn't cost anything for me to do that. And that is the truth, and that is reality. We're asking you all to not use the same stick to beat us all. And say that just because someone has insulted religious leaders, it means all activists in this country are the same way. That's not who we are. I went to Imam Fati when I first came back to the Gambia and I heard about what was going on. I bought kola nuts and I went to his house to have a meeting with him. I was there with Said Matijao. And I told him, if there's any way that my community, which is the activist community, have hurt their community, I apologize on behalf of everyone. And the reason why I did that is because my first identity is the fact that I'm a Gambian. My second identity is the fact that I'm a Sarahule girl. And I am a Muslim girl. And I will use dialogue to try to reach and change the minds of people before forcing my views on anyone. Even today, as we sit here with you, like I said, we're not here to impose our views on you, but we are here to plead with you as the custodians of our law, as the people that can help us uphold this law that is meant to protect our women and girls, to listen to us and take everything in and ensure that justice is served and ensure that this law stays in the Gambia. So I want to say thank you very much. If you have any questions for me, or if there's anything that you want me to clarify, I am here with my team. And we just want you to help us as Gambian women, as someone who has been through FGM, as someone who knows what this practice is. Thank you.
Sweden. Fast forward to 2012, Future Enhanced Gambia was established as a local organization. While historically, the organization was primarily education-based, focusing on teacher training and building of schools, its approach has become comprehensive in recognition of the myriad of challenges facing Gambians, especially rural dwellers. Therefore, Future Enhanced current sectoral interventions include education, health, local governance, human rights, civic education, policy advocacy, horticulture, food security and training, and supporting school management authorities, promotion of teaching and learning, as well as construction of school infrastructure. Nonetheless, trainings provide materials for the preservation and processing of agricultural and horticultural products in fortified or nutritious foods for children. We also sensitize communities on hygiene practices, first aid treatment, recognition of signs and symptoms requiring immediate attention. Our work also includes sensitizing communities on gendered roles, violence, early marriages, and more. We have also worked tirelessly to sensitize communities on the harmful effects of FGMC in communities over the years. This is mainly done to protect the rights of women and children. For us, rights are indivisible. Therefore, comprehensive approaches are needed to address issues affecting women. Our current programs are directly benefiting 60,000 Gambian children in schools, about half of them across the regions. While we have classified into various areas, we still believe development is a right whose attainment is anchored on the promotion and enshrined in the national and international legislations. However, protection of these rights are those of the Gambia. And that is why we continuously engage government agencies and representatives to protect the rights of girls and women. To give you a little background, I'm sure you've heard quite a lot of this in these few days, but we will add our little research to it. The World Health Organization defined female genital mutilation as any and all procedures that involve removing a part or whole of the external female genitalia, or any other injury to the female genitalia for non-medical reasons. Similarly, the National Assembly, in its 2015 amendment, defined female circumcision as the total or partial excision of the prepuce, clitoris, labia minora, labia majora, stitching by any means, introduction of any corrosive substance or herbs into the vagina to narrow it, nicking and pricking of the clitoris, any form of cutting. Female circumcision or cutting or mutilation is a harmful practice that is widespread in the world. The WHO estimates that 330 million women and girls in just 30 countries in Africa, Middle East, and Asia have been circumcised. The health complications resulting from the practice is devastating. It also places a health burden on the poor families and states. According to the Gambia's Demographic Health Survey Report 2019-2020, female genital mutilation, cutting, or circumcision is very prevalent in Gambia, as 73% of women aged 15 to 49 are circumcised. In 2013, women between the age of 15 and 49 were circumcised before they 18% were circumcised between the age of 5 to 9. Yet 6% were circumcised between the age of 10 to 14. Only 1% were circumcised at the age of 15 or older. Most devastating, 22% of daughters were circumcised before they reached their first birthday anniversary. Gambian women and girls have been narrating the ordeal, just like our sister here, that circumcision has brought on them. FIHTG has such voices from all parts of the country. Furthermore, the impact on Gambian women and girls is well researched and documented in scientific and medical journals. A 2022 article authored by health practitioners in the Gambia, which had 1,569 participants in the study, established that the risk of postpartum hemorrhage was doubled for women with type 1 FGMC, tripled for type 2 FGMC, and increased by 5-fold for those with type 3 and type 4. Cesarean section and perineal tears were also increased. FGMC was associated with increased risk of neonatal resuscitation and perinatal death. FGMC is associated with poor obstetric and neonatal outcomes in the Gambia, with a degree of risk correlating to the severity of female genital circumcision or mutilation. In fact, this finding conforms with the results of previous studies which associated female circumcision or mutilation with health complications. Future Enhance the Gambia strongly believes that female genital mutilation is a serious violation of human rights, a harmful practice, and without any utilitarian value to society or national development. Therefore, as a right, female genital mutilation, cutting, or circumcision. An attempt to legalize the practice, and we urge the national to reject the bill. In the following pages of the Women's Amendment 2023, hearing called the bill, is to amend the Women's Act 2015, which amended Principal Act number 12 of 2010. While the Honorable National Assembly members are very well aware of the provisions of the said Act, amendment is being sought by the bill, it is important to recount the relevant provisions in order to provide. The relevant provisions are 32B of the Women's Act. Section 32A prohibits persons from engagement in female circumcision and makes persons liable to conviction, to imprisonment of 3 years or a fine of $50,000 or to both. Where female circumcision causes death, to life and imprisonment. Furthermore, Section 3 of the said section defines circumcision as including the excision of the prepuce with partial or total excision of the clitoris, the partial or total excision of the labia minora, the partial or total excision of the external genitalia, including stitching, the stitching with thorns, straw, thread, or by any other means in order to connect the excision of the labia and the connecting of the vagina, and the introduction of corrosive substances or herbs into the vagina for the purpose of narrowing. Symbolic practices that involve the nicking and pricking of the clitoris to release drops of blood, engaging in any form of female genital mutilation or cutting. Section 32B, on the other hand, provides for the conviction of accomplices to female circumcision. Subsection 1 of 32B prohibits the requesting, inciting, and promotion of female circumcision by any means, and lays a conviction to imprisonment for 3 years or $50,000 is fine, or both. Subsection 2 of 32B lays down punishment for concealment or failure to report female circumcision. A person convicted of such shall be liable to a fine of $10,000. These are the two sections, 32A and B, that the new bill seeks to delete. The deletion would mean that FGMC shall be legal in the Gambia. The main proponent of the bill states that the female circumcision is rooted in ethnic, traditional, cultural, and religious beliefs of the majority of the Gambian people. It seeks to uphold the religious purity and safeguard cultural norms and values. It is further stated in the object and reason of the bill that the ban violates cultural and religious rights enshrined in the Constitution of the Gambia. And since majority of the Gambian population is Muslim and Islam, it is also claimed that the ban violates the broader principles of the UN and agencies who encourage preserving cultural and historical heritage. It went on to term wrong, as what is practiced in the Gambia is circumcision and not mutilation. Below we address claim 1. The practice is rooted in ethnic, traditional, cultural beliefs of the majority of the Gambian people. It is evident that this is rooted in ethnic or cultural groups. There are families and clans and ethnic groups who do not practice female circumcision. In fact, the evidence shows that female circumcision or mutilation is most prevalent in Basse with 97%, 80% in Mansokonko, 78% in Birkama. However, for example, in Kerawan, it is 42% and 48% in Banjul. Does that mean that Kerawan and Banjul do not share the Gambian culture? Consequently, the legalization of female genital mutilation will ostracize such communities, clans, families who do not practice it. Such people are already in an area or family where the practice is prevalent. They are often labeled as Solima in Mandinka or Ohat in Serer. Therefore, in order to protect everyone, it is important to uphold the ban. The claim, too, that female circumcision is rooted in religious beliefs. Most of the religious scholars are in agreement that female circumcision is not obligatory. In fact, the OIC Plan of Action for the Advancement of Women, 2016, called for the eradication of FGM. As recent as 2024, the Independent Permanent Human Rights Commission, IPHRC, of the OIC, referred to female genital mutilation as a mere traditional custom, potentially threatening the well-being of girls. The Grand Sheikh of Cairo, Cairo's prestigious Al-Azhar Mosque, Mohammed Said Tantawi, declared the practice as un-Islamic. Sheikh Al-Awa, the General Secretary of the International Federation of Islamic Scholars, similarly dismissed any association between female circumcision and Islam. Our position is that every religious duty has an intrinsic and physical value. For example, the Quran states that praying prevents us from being wrong and helps those in need. However, there is no single verse in the Quran which suggests the act as it or its value, that is female or spiritual necessity of the act. In Islam, the sources of impurities are known. in oneself is required in Islam. That the means of purification are the ritual bath, that's al-zukus, ablution, al-wudu, or dry ablution, tayammum. According to Islam, is gained established beliefs and practicing, including fasting, praying, giving alms. Nowhere circumcising the females ensures religious piety. Furthermore, we are of the view that while is important means, for example, of transportation, isn't that instructive? Few of us came here in not stagnant. Consequently, the new law would mislead the population on belief, and which is inimical to the health and well-being of women and girls. Muslim surgeons in the and outside have established that even if the practice were Islamic, the harm it brings necessitates its banning. During the COVID crisis, congregational prayers, Hajj, and the traditional Zanazah were all forbidden. However, we all abided by the regulations because that is what the science requires. So, because in it. The fourth claim, the current law can lead to conflict. That's the fourth claim by the bill. People do not necessarily abide by laws simply because they apply it when they feel that it has a value and a use, a functionality. Furthermore, it is not that people are law to be repealed. Armed robbers, hoarders are against the Consumer Protection Law. Exploiters are against the Children's Act. Should we repeal all these laws simply because some group of people are against the laws? That defies logic. Therefore, the claim is untenable. Consequently, repealing the ban and passing the amendment lays the precedent for a chaotic society, one where women and children lack protection simply because a group based on view on culture or religion believes and claims that a particular law brings conflict. The fifth claim, which is that the ban contradicts the broader principles of the UN. The ban on female circumcision and mutilation is in line with the general and specific principles and aspirations of the UN Charter. The proponent of the ban encourages the preservation of cultural heritages. For the member, it follows that banning a practice rooted in culture is against the UN principles. The aspirations and principles of the UN considered. The UDHR declares no one shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment in Article 7. It talks about the right to participate in a covenant on economic, social, and cultural rights. Therefore, circumcision inflicts harm, it is degrading. The reason why it is done to children in sick violates well-being. It is important to reiterate that, in fact, 67% of women between the age of 15 and 49 were circumcised before they reached the age of 5. Furthermore, 18 were circumcised between the age of 5 and 9, while 6 are circumcised between the age of 10 and 14. Only 1 is circumcised at the age of 5, 1% that is, at the age of 15 or older. 22% of the daughters were circumcised before they reached their first birthday. Therefore, 99% of circumcised do not even reach the age of 99. That's a sobering statistic right there. And since the practice is not medical, it's not for medical treatment, parents cannot give consent in this case. Think about the agonizing cries of children. The claim number 6, circumcision is not mutilation, which is one of the most popular arguments. To mutilate is defined in the Oxford Online Dictionary as to deprive a person or animal of the use of bodily organs by dismemberment or otherwise, to cut off or destroy. The scars left by female circumcision points to one fact: a mutilated organ. The adjectival definition of mutilation refers to having some part missing, imperfect, or destroyed. The question one asks is thus: when something is cut and thrown away, does not the ban would ensure proper conduct? The ban came about in 2015. However, prior to that date, there is no evidence that the act done in accordance with what the proponent. Gambian and health practitioners have ruled that there would not be any procedure deemed medically proper because the practice has no health benefit. Similarly, the WHO is absolutely clear that medicalizing female circumcision are weak and has been rejected by eminent scholars in Islam. The practice contributes neither to religious purity, beneficial or adequate. Furthermore, it violates all the international human rights instruments. We are of the opinion that caregivers and health practitioners who do not see FGMC as wrong are a danger to women and girls, especially those who suffer complications as a result of female genital mutilation. Furthermore, Future Enhance the Gambia is aware of the role of sensitization and awareness creation. We recommend to pass a motion declaring 2030 a year of zero FGMC in the Gambia. This will be in line with the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Thank you very much.
Gaining a lot of knowledge about the bill. Sometimes I do have some journalists who do call me to ask me, because sometimes I'm vocal in interviews, why I'm not discussing on this bill. Let me just start by saying who I am, because sometimes people, you can judge me anyhow you want, but I will always be who I am. And then I have worked for Child Fund, and then this was 2000 or 2005. And I am who I am today because of my mother. This is why, again, I work for a very noble organization called Child Fund the Gambia, which has uplifted the status of many communities involving myself. There is a slogan with the Child Fund that always says the well-being of the child is our concern. We become an advocate. I spend my resources, I spend my money in uplifting the status of girls. Those who don't know me will not know me. This bill, I find it very difficult to discuss about it for the simple reason. One, it's associated with religion. All I know about Islam, I've never been to an Arabic school. I knew it through the 30 minutes period in school. Again, the other side, it does not affect me. It affects women. I'm coming to ask a question. I'm just saying brief. I know I'm facing the media. Yeah. And then when you are facing the media, the interpretation before whatever I say, I have to make clarification. And then, yes, I heard you because I came in the middle of your presentation. And then I heard you where locals always accuse of maybe activists being given money. And then I think I always say it, if there is going to be any failure, it is you, the advocates, or you, the activists, that we're going to point fingers to. For me, no one intimidates me. For the simple reason, they have started saying that they are banning National Assembly members if they vote against this bill. That is one.
Activists are banning.
No, somebody banning. You know, that's what I'm trying to say here. And then,
Honorable, can we just be more specific?
Yeah.
Because the purpose of this committee is to consult the relevant stakeholders.
I'm coming.
And part of the consultation is about the bill that was presented to us as honorable members.
Yeah,
So what they want to do or what they don't want to do is none of our business.
Okay.
With due respect, please.
Okay.
So just go straight to what they have presented and you just ask if you want clarity, let them clarify. Then
Yes, I heard you well, because here the argument here, like what you stated here, they say female genitalization, others say female circumcision. So I am a little bit confused here. Which one is Gambia practice? But most they will tell you is female circumcision. This is where the problem is. At the moment, we've not taken any position. I said I'm a representative of the people. I have been working to protect the rights of the child, and then I have been contributing my own resources to uplift the status of the girl's life. So, now my question is, can you try to clarify this circumcision and the genitalization? They are saying type 1, type 2, type 3. We don't understand which one.
Okay. I think that's clear.
Thank you.
The question is clear and is open to both presenters. He just wants a clarity on the difference between when it comes to FGC and also FGM. That is what he wants clarity on.
Okay.
So if you can please answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Of the practice of female genital mutilation. When we say type 1 FGM, that's the partial or total removal of the clitoris. When we say type 2, that's the partial or total removal of the clitoris as well as the labia. And type 3 is where we go into sealing of the vagina. The clitoris is the most sensitive part of a female's genitalia. If you cut part of it or a whole of it, it's still considered female genital mutilation. And then you go to type 2, you go to type 3, right? And almost every single woman that you go to talk to in this country, whether they're from the Mandinka tribe or they're from the Soninka tribe or they're from the Fulani tribe, right? All of them, what they have experienced, majority of them, and there was recently data that was released by the fact finders, and what they found is almost 70% of women who have gone through what we consider female genital mutilation went through either type 2 or type 3 of the practice, not type 1. What the imams and the religious leaders are referring to, you can consider that as part of type 1, but even that, what they're saying, that's not type 1, because type 1 is the partial or total removal of the clitoris, right? And what the religious leaders, what I have heard them say, is that what they're referring to, you don't even touch any of the organs, is something that's outside of the organs, right? So that's not even what we consider type 1 to be, if you want me to be completely honest and straightforward with you. But the 3 types of what we call female genital mutilation, that's exactly what I described. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. No, this is a very confusing definition.
No, I said it's gonna come.
Others say cotton, but for us, based on the experience of what the evidence is saying, type 2, type 3, for us as an organization, we stick to female genital mutilation because that is the experience of our executive director, and that's what we know, and that's what we stick to. Thank you.
Which is, we know widely as circumcision, which is removal of the skin, to what is done to females. Because there is no way practicable for just the skin of the vagina or any part to be removed. So I think I agree with them to say that you can call what is done to women mutilation, because there is nothing similar to what is done to women than what is done to men, for your lay understanding. Yeah, thank you.
So, you have a
story of Prophet Abraham and Hajara. It didn't say that his first wife went through female circumcision. It says that the second wife, who was the slave that was given to him and gave birth to Prophet Ismail, radiallahu anhu. So, and then when we look at the cases of Prophet Musa as well, alayhi salam, we see that in his context as well, it was the pharaonic type, which is type 3 FGM, as they refer to it in most of the Arab countries, right? It was something, again, that was done to people they considered slaves. So this is not, and then even the Athiya hadith, which has been shown that it's not an authentic hadith, right? But I'm not a religious scholar, so I cannot really speak deeply on that. But when you look at it and when you read a lot of the religious context, you will see that Athiya was actually a sort of a midwife that practiced this on slaves. So it wasn't for Arabs at the time, but she was actually someone that was there doing this practice for slaves. And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and saw her, in the hadith, it's stated that, so you would always see that throughout history where we see FGM happening, it has always been something that was practiced on slaves. And then the way it came to Africa, a lot of people say that it came through the Arab slave trade. So for me, I think that, you know, the genesis of it or where it comes from doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, female circumcision is about the control of women's bodies. Because even the narrative here in the Gambia and what we continue to hear is that this practice should continue so that we can control women's desires. But why do we need to control the desires of women, especially if this is a God-given right? And Allah tells us in the Quran that He created us perfectly. Human beings are created, just the way they are. And knowing that this is the most sensitive part of a female's body, you can't compare that to her getting sensuality from other parts of her bodies, just as presentations that were made in front of this committee, wherein, we've heard people saying, well, the clitoris is not the only place that a woman can get sensation from. You can touch other, but why do we continue and why do we need to do that to women? And why are we using women as collateral damage in this conversation? And the people that are proponents of this practice are mainly men. It's not the women themselves who have been through the practice. And when they speak out, a lot of times all we do and tell them is that they're lying, somebody has paid them. So to me, my question and my appeal to all of you is, why does it always need to be that someone has paid them? Why does it always need to be that we need to control their sexuality? Thank you.
Locally now, the way they're using it, because of Salima, now they're changing it to Solima, and we all know Solima in every world. So I think it is also very important to enlighten you on that. The Arabs used that word Salim, women or girls that went through female circumcision or didn't go through female circumcision. So, honorable member, you can.
So he gave the example of the Dogon tribe, where they believe that if a child is born, the child comes with two reproductive organs, the male part and the female part. And for that child to be human and perfect, to be differentiated from the God, because if you look at a good number of traditional religion, was neither a man or a woman. He has so in order to be a human being from the be a perfect woman, she needed to go through this one. And one other thing that is also instructive in Seher Anta Diop's narration, and I think we will all accept Seher Anta Diop as one of the most heritage historians in Africa, not just a historian, but an anthropologist as well. He argued that, for instance, if you look at some African societies, kings who became sick or who became incapacitated for one reason or the other were physically killed, because the king, as the representative of God on earth, should be perfect. But no one practices that tradition today. Everyone has abandoned that tradition. And in fact, he narrated that even before colonialism, some societies decided to change that from a physical to a spiritual exercise. And so you can see the correlation between these practices, that the king has to be perfect, that the woman has to be perfect, and that is why what was considered to be a male organ had to be removed. So looking at that, something that was a pagan origin, how do we associate that with Islam? Thank you.
Right. We normally practice female genital mutilation from the time the woman gives birth to 1 week or 2 weeks old, right? But then you have other tribes in the Gambia that practice it when girls are a little bit older. From 8 years old, I've heard cases of 6 years, even 12 years, sometimes even older than that, right? And, different tribes practice FGM for various reasons, right? In the Sarahule tribe, we don't have the fanfare where we do ceremonies, but before Jammeh banned FGM in the Gambia, in Mandinka tribes, they used to take groups of girls every year where they all go through FGM together, and then they have like a coming out ceremony that includes dancings and different traditional rituals that happen. So this practice can happen to a child anywhere from the time that they are born all the way to 15 years old. Conversation has started. We have focused on dialogue. We have focused on reaching out to people. And when it comes to the language that we use, right? If I go to a place like Gambisara and I'm trying to talk to my people, they don't understand female genital mutilation. A lot of them call it sunnah. A lot of them, they have other terminologies that they refer to it. We speak to our people in the language that they understand. We talk to them. We meet them wherever they need us to meet them. And I think the biggest issue that we are facing in the Gambia is because there's rumors about, advocacy and activists and what they do and what they don't do. Everyone looks at all of us with the same lens. But even, I'm not a radical feminist. I would say that I am not a radical feminist. My culture doesn't allow me to be a radical feminist. My religion doesn't allow me to be a radical feminist. My approach to activism and my approach to treating women's issues focuses on the equity, which is what Allah tells us in the Quran. The way we should be treated, the laws that are established to protect us. We should all be treated with the same right. We should all be treated, and no one should subject another human being to something based on their gender, where they are from, their socio-economic status, and all of that. And that's the approach that we use as an organization. And if I have missed anything or there's anything to add, Ma'am Lisa, please go ahead.
Yes, when we started operating in 2013, before we went to communities and started projecting or saying things, we went to every community. Seth and I visited every community. We went to about 80 communities, if I remember, in 2013 to speak to people and understand the language that they wanted to be used. For example, you go to certain communities, they accept Nyakatota. You go to certain communities, they accept Wula Konota. Those are the things that we wanted to know, how to approach our people and what is acceptable to them. And we did that before we started the advocacy on the ground in order to approach our people, like Yaha said, in the most respectable manner as we can. Because we understand, like I said, there's a sensitive issue that is associated to religion. Respect is key in our approach, even before this started. Thank you.
Understand the language, and you cannot approach a community without respect, then your objective will not be attained. However, we are talking to the National Assembly of the Gambia, and you guys are expected to be enlightened to a certain level where you should understand when slavery was being done, people thought it was okay. Now, in hindsight, we think it was inhumane because you were subjecting other human beings to below human standards. Now we are feeling like, as women, denying us our sexual rights is below human standards. And so to talk to people at that level, for you to understand how we are feeling as women, I think to say that it's inhumane is fair. Female. And according to the medicine, there is a value, a medicinal value to circumcising males in terms of protection against diseases. Whereas there has not been any value of medical use put forward for the circumcision of women. Culturally, some of the reasons for doing it that have been brought forward, that when we engage community members, is so that women are able to keep their chastity, so that when they are sealed, they will not be sexually active before marriage. But we have seen time and time again that young girls are getting pregnant despite all those precautions. So for me, that removes that particular argument. So we don't see any medical value for it. That's the difference between the male and the female circumcision.
In this country, we tend to compare men and women. Why boys this, why boy that. But when it comes to school, when it comes to all these different benefits, we say boys go to school, girls stay at home. We don't compare in this sense, why is it that girls are not going to school and boys are going to school? But we are talking also about, something that affects the health of a particular person. And I'm happy Honorable mentioned that he is very careful not to speak about this issue. One, because he doesn't experience it. And secondly, is somebody that is experiencing it, that is telling us how they are feeling. But then the problem in terms of the boy-girl debate here is the boy doesn't want to listen. The boy doesn't want to listen to understand the pain that is coming from the other side, of the woman's body. And I think the more we start listening to each other, sometimes some of these, these ping pong issues, could be avoided. But then the issue here is not about the boy or the girl, it's about the harm. What harm are we causing to our women? And these women, we expect them to raise children, we expect them to take care of the family, yet they are telling us that they are going through harm that we are inflicting using our own hands. Yet we are saying, well, the boy here, the girl there. But they are different people. They're different in terms of their body, they're different in terms of their purpose. And I think even during one of our documentaries in Basel, some of these women believe that if they have to go through this, they will be able to deliver properly. And that's why, we asked them in terms of the response, why do you think, how do you think you could be assisted? And some of them were saying, if you build hospital for us, it means that people are doing this because there are certain understanding that they have. But if today we are talking about health, everybody needs access to health because health is a human right. Mm-hmm. And if people are saying that if they have access to this, then they can stop this kind of practice, then the question is, what kind of investment do we need to make in our own country so that people that are convinced that this is a good thing would find better alternatives instead of that. Mm-hmm. And for me, the question here is then we need to focus on the girl child, and this is what everybody's been saying, I think.
And just to briefly add to what Seth has said, right? Comparing the practice of female genital mutilation to male circumcision is equal to removing the entire penis of a man, and I want that to stick. Exactly. Because when you look at the female clitoris, it's not just what we see outside, but a lot of it is also internal. And what medical doctors have agreed on is the fact that comparing what we refer to as female genital mutilation, whether it's type 1, type 2, or type 3, is equal to removing the entire penis of a man.
Boy not accepting what the girl is saying. When this issue started last year in around September, and I went on Facebook and saw some of the comments from men saying we're lying, I cried. And I cried because I went through it. I went through type 2. Ja called me and said she wanted us to discuss about this thing and start talking to people again. And my response to Ja was, I'm not coming. I don't want to talk about FGM again. And it's because of the pain of a guy looking at me and telling me that what I said was wrong. What other testimonies do they need? What other proof do they need? They need everybody that has gone through type 2 and type 3 to open their legs, and so that this actually affected them. It is not for the guy to tell me that what I went through is a lie. It is for me to say my experience, and it is for him to listen, not to discredit what I said.
Lisa, let me just add to that. Just to add to what Lisa has been saying, Safe Hands was founded in 2013, and we had an office here in the Gambia. After a while, we closed down our office. Seth went on and founded the Center of Research. Lisa's working for the Ministry of Youth. And everyone went on their journeys. I'm at the World Bank. I'm doing, my fashion stuff, whether it's L'Oreal or I'm working with other big brands in the US. But then what brought us all back together is you guys and the presentation of this bill. If we had an option, we don't want to work on the issue of FGM. We don't want to be here having these conversations with you. We're not one of those organizations that want this issue to continue because there's donor funding out there. That's not our problem. What we care about is our people and women in this community. If you guys decide to end this today, we go back to our daily lives. We don't want to be here. And that's the reality. We don't want to have these conversations. We don't want to be sitting in this room. I personally know that I would rather be doing other things than sitting in this room and having this conversation with majority men about what happens to a woman's body.
I think that is clear.
We said it's important to invest in our communities. It's important to have programs that are designed with a lot of intention, right? I personally don't believe in having programs that are specifically about FGM alone because it doesn't work. The reason why, I always say this, before the Sustainable Development Goals, which says that we need to end FGM by 2030, we had something else called the Millennium Development Goals, right? And that came and went by, and FGM is still here. Now 2030 is almost here. Globally, the numbers of FGM are not going down. The reason is the way we talk about the issue is not making sense to our people, and there's a huge disconnect somewhere. So whether it's the UN or the international community, there's a lot of work that needs to happen, and they need to understand that we cannot end female genital mutilation in isolation. We need to invest in women. We need to invest in programs that are dedicated to the overall health of not only women or communities, because communities will only believe us when they trust us. The reason why our approach has not worked is because communities do not trust us. Communities believe that the work that we are doing is not for them. We are doing it because of our own agendas. So right now, what I took out of all of this is that urgency and that importance of going back to our people and ensuring that they, one, trust us, two, they see that we are for them and we are doing this work simply for their own benefit and not our own benefit. And once we do that, I believe then we will achieve the goals that we want. So this is not one-sided. The same way we're telling you that you guys have a lot of work to do or keep the ban in place, we also know that us as civil society and us as organizations, we need to reevaluate how we have been talking about this issue and how we have been working on this issue.
Okay, I think that is very clear. But before you come, I think what I did was very important. Like you said, there was a gap.
Yes.
And there is still a gap.
Yes.
That is why everything that is happening now is happening.
Yes.
But notwithstanding, we're looking for, let's say, the way forward.
Yes, sir.
Because, like I always say, a problem that is not solved is still a problem.
Yes, sir.
But a problem that is solved will no more be a problem.
Yes,
and we believe as we come together, we can come up with a very sustainable solution.
Yes, sir.
Because looking at the entire situation now, it's not like we're going through something whereby we want a temporal solution.
Yes, sir.
We want a permanent solution. That is what you are saying.
Yes.
But coming back to it, let's also understand, some of our people are saying, let it be optional.
Yes.
Let it be optional in the sense that let's allow young girls to be 18 to give their consent. What do you have to say about that?
Is that for me?
For all of you.
Auntie J, you want to go?
I'll follow suit.
So, for me personally, right, if this law, when it was passed, gave women the consent, like for instance, there's this argument by religious leaders that in the West they do practice labiaplasty. It's true, they do. And the practice of labiaplasty is very similar to what we call female genital mutilation. It's not much of a difference. So I will acknowledge that. And if it was adult women that were going into the hospital, paying doctors to do whatever it is that they want to do to their body, I personally don't have anything against that. But the issue is we're not talking about adult women. We're talking about children who have no say in it, who have absolutely no choice in it. So when the conversation is about adult women, no, I cannot tell them what to do with their bodies.
I think that's very loud and clear.
Yeah, we want this to continue. And I'm saying that as NGOs, I think it's necessary for us to work hand in hand. We have done the research. We know the facts. We don't mind going with you to your communities and really sensitizing and educating people. But I think the work needs to be done on the ground to educate. You have a responsibility to educate people on it. We all know that we are facing a serious problem with maternal mortality. And if FGM, stopping FGM could reduce a few percentage of that maternal mortality rates, do you think it's worth it or not? I think it's very much worth it. We are not, of course, we are talking about people who have survived FGM. We are acknowledging that they have gone through it and they are fine, they've given birth. But we are speaking on behalf of those who didn't make it. The baby that died before she was even a month old, who is here to speak for her? She couldn't survive because of it. And how many of those do we have? The one who is survived and is able to support the ban or to support FGM that you spoke to is a survivor. But are we here to speak on behalf of the vulnerable or those who have made it? I think we need to weigh that balance. Thank you.
I think that
has made it clear. I'm a UN ambassador. I'm the regional UN Women's Regional Goodwill Ambassador for Africa. The UN's position on the issue of female genital mutilation is totally clear. Is the fact that it is harmful. And they agreed that all countries by 2030 should end the practice. And Gambia signed on to the Maputo Protocol, right? But on the option that people do have a cultural right? I am a Soninke from Gambisara. To this day, we have people that they consider slaves, and I'm totally against that. Because I don't think that you have any right to look at another human being and call them your slave. But there's a lot of people, including family members of mine, that are probably watching this that would insult me for saying that I am against that. But the truth is the truth. Slavery used to be something that was practiced throughout Africa and the world, but as human beings, we agreed that it's inhumane. In China, foot binding, where they took women's foot and binded it together because they felt that it was beautiful and it was a cultural practice. It was something that they did to women, but once they knew that this was harmful to women, it took them less than 10 years for them to end it. So yes, it might be something that, it has been passed down for centuries and generations, but it still doesn't make it right. And that's why we are here. And I think as Safe Hands for Girls, even with Auntie and other organizations that are in this room, right? Our conversation that we want to have with you is what Honorable Ba has said. There has been gaps, we know that. There's a lot of work that needs to happen. There's a lot of investment that needs to go into our communities if we want to see the change that we want. And we want the outcome of this committee as well as the presentation of this bill is for you to uphold the law. But we also want to work with you to ensure that what we have not done and where we have failed, that we correct those mistakes.
Even though we believe some of you are very busy right now, but in that regards, thank you. That's the end. You are now released. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.